I came to you with those calculations, we thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the entire world.
I remember it well. What of it?
I believe we did.
Welcome back, Exile. In today's video I want to showcase a concept I thought of a while back. This was an expensive build to make, at least for me, which is why I didn't do this sooner. I also didn't keep track of all the currency I spent, but I know it's easily more than 50 and probably still less than 100 divines so far. A lot of the expensive stuff was jewels and other niche items. I'm not even using a level 20 spirit gem here, despite getting lucky with a +1 corruption, simply because they were over 60 divines when I last checked. In this video I'm using at most a level 18 gem, so there's still a lot of damage left on the table. I want you to keep that in mind. Anyway, this build took some work and a lot of trial and error. As per my intro showcase, this is an Iron Ward Blood Mage that also triggers Living Bomb for bonus damage and sustain. You can actually completely leave out the spell part if you prefer, but I love trigger builds, so why not? Funnily enough, this whole chain reaction thing was mainly a discovery I made by accident. I was playing around with different spells, even the more logical combo of Fireball and Living Bomb due to the free fire infusions, and it actually worked so well that my character was running the constant risk of killing itself with too many monsters around. Turns out, when you hit really hard and a lot of enemies at once, you can get a lot of cast on Elemental Ailment procs at the same time. So much so that Fireball with its high mana cost would frequently chew through my life and bring me near death. That's why I stopped using it. So if you were ever left wondering why your trigger build sucks despite maxed out crit chance or whatever, it's because your build lacks damage, literally. GGG made a change where the damage of the hit is factored into the energy gain, which is why cast on crit comet is so rampant this league due to its high base damage. But I digress. Given the fact that I'm still not entirely sure how Ignite works in this game and how it sometimes interacts in unexpected ways, let me give you a breakdown of what I think is happening. After I fully charge up Iron Ward, I get this huge explosion with a lot of extra AoE. Said explosion will ignite everything around me, which will then trigger Living Bomb, which has a unique interaction where it explodes when enemies take a set amount of their ailment threshold as damage. That Living Bomb then detonates and ignites, planting the second seed that explodes and triggers the first, and so it repeats. Or the initial ignite damage is still running its course and triggers both of them one after the other. I honestly can't say for sure. When I tested this a while back with Birth of Fury to see whether the seed would explode when enemies walk over the ignited ground, it did not work. Neither did cast on Elemental Ailment. However, if my observations are correct, as testing it now proves rather difficult, it does seem to work with skills you use yourself. At least, that would explain why it works so well with Iron Ward. I have no other explanation as to why this chain reaction works so incredibly well. Let's break down what makes this whole thing even work. To start off, let's take a look at Iron Ward. The gem says that it tracks physical damage prevented and then deals AoE damage based on how much was stored up to a maximum. Take note of the prevention part. We will come back to that in a bit, but first, let's understand how we take advantage of that. To make myself take a lot of damage quickly, there are multiple ways to achieve this. Volatility, Infernal Flame, etc. However, if you've been following my channel for a while, you will know that I absolutely love Eye of Innocence, which is an item that exists in PoE 1 and deals fire damage to you when you ignite enemies. I have made plenty of builds around this item, for example my Poor Man's Ward Loop. So, can you guess which item I'm talking about? That's right, Fireflower. It does the same thing. That alone, however, doesn't solve the issue because remember we need to take physical damage. This is where the Red Cage unique body armor comes into play. It allows us to take all fire damage from hits as physical damage. That's one part solved, now let's move to the next. In order to ignite enemies quickly, there are a bunch of ways as well, but the most reliable way I found was Ignited Ground. Can you guess which item I will bring up next? Right again, Birth of Fury makes its return. I already showcased how I use this in my Candle Runner build, so suffice to say it works pretty darn well for this purpose. Running around and dropping Ignited Ground everywhere I go lets me ramp up the stacks needed quite quickly when there's lots of enemies around. That's another part solved, so let's talk about the most important aspect of it all. We have now figured out a way how to take a lot of damage quickly and how to shift the damage taken, but what I haven't yet told you is how I manage all the damage taken part. Remember, not only do we have to take all that damage, we also need to prevent it, otherwise Iron Ward does nothing. Now you might be figuring out why I'm using Blood Mage. You see, Blood Mage has a very handy passive here called Grasping Wounds, which will prevent a set amount of damage taken from hits and then deal that damage to you delayed over a period of time instead. If you're familiar with Petrified Blood from PoE 1, this is basically that. Furthermore, this passive stacks with the Amanamo Keystone Sacrifice of Flesh, allowing us to prevent even more damage. This is vital to the build as it literally prevents damage, which is the prerequisite for Iron Ward to function. On top of that, I stack a bunch of physical damage reduction via items such as Hollow Mask, a shield, a corruption on my Rat Cage, and some armor. You could also use Guard for this purpose, but it's very expensive to get and there's not a lot of it in the game. Let's dive into the final piece of the puzzle. We have damage taken and damage reduction solved, so what's missing? Correct, sustain. In order to not die to life loss from the Blood Mage passive and Amanamo Keystone, we have to pick up some life recoup all over the tree. Coupled with some recoup speed and the life leech and life remnants from Blood Mage, we can sustain this damage loop to great effect. I still recommend to have some form of life recovery on kill to deal with any edge cases such as those I mentioned earlier. One final thing I need to talk about, and that's why Ignite. Simply put, Iron Ward takes time to charge, so it made the most sense to me to go with something that deals damage while I'm still preparing. Poison or bleed weren't really an option here because I needed to invest into flammability anyway, and Fireflower would otherwise feel wasted. To cut down on some of the already extensive editing, I'm just gonna point you to my POB in the description that should answer most of your burning questions. And if you still have any left for me, feel free to ask and I'll try to answer when I can. That's gonna be it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this showcase, and if you did, you know what to do. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Cheers!